Hello, I'm Cathy O'Flynn McGee, an Associate Professor Emeritus at UBC School of Nursing, and I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Tom Scholt, Professor in the UBC Department of Theatre and Film. Together, with students and faculty, we developed a series of initiatives to support nursing students if and when they witnessed or experienced bullying. Sadly, bullying is rampant in nursing. Students and new grads are especially vulnerable. Our focus has been on nursing students, given our roles as educators and leaders in our respective areas. For conceptual clarity, we draw on the BC legislated definition of bullying and harassment as any inappropriate conduct or comment by a person towards a worker, or we've added student, that the person knew or reasonably ought to have known would cause that worker to be humiliated or intimidated, but it excludes any reasonable action taken by an employer or supervisor relating to the management and direction of workers or students or their places of employment. In this video, we will share direction for engaging in forum theatre as a pedagogy. We've used this medium in nursing education as part of the CRAB project, a series of initiatives to address bullying in nursing education. And quite literally, CRAB means cognitive rehearsal to address bullying. And during that process, we have developed an approach and best practices that will be helpful for anyone looking to apply forum theatre in a similar context. Forum theatre was the first education strategy we used to address bullying. It is grounded in the work of Augusto Boal's Theatre of the Oppressed and David Diamond's Theatre for Living. It was an ideal fit for our work because it's grounded in social justice and anti-oppressive practice, as well drawing on the work of education activists such as Paulo Freire, Bell Hooks and others, has directed us to focus on bullying across levels, from the individual encounter to the systemic structures in which bullying resides. Tom will explain forum theatre in detail, so I will just say that it was a new pedagogy for me and my colleagues in nursing. We've learned so much from working with Tom, and in this video you will get to see him in action. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you so much, Cathy. I've also learned so much from you and your colleagues on this journey through the challenges of nursing and nursing education. In the video on this section of the website, we will introduce you to a particular approach to forum theatre that remains deeply steeped in and indebted to the work of Boal and Diamond, but that also incorporates novel elements from my own research in the domains of cybernetics and systems theory. However, prior knowledge of any of these theories and practices is absolutely not a prerequisite for engaging in this work. Our aim is to provide you with the basic tools to facilitate interactive performances of the scenarios downloadable on this site with confidence and clarity, no matter what level of theatrical experience you may or may not have. So let's get started. First, we want to look at the lineage of CRAB's forum theatre component. As you've seen looking at our website, it's one of a number of different approaches we're taking to this issue of bullying. So forum theatre was developed in the 1960s and 1970s by Brazilian theatre artist and activist Augusto Boal as part of what he called his arsenal of the theatre of the oppressed. It's been adapted and developed by many, many people around the world, and the person who I trained with, and Cathy as well, and many others that we've worked with, is a gentleman by the name of David Diamond. And his adaptations of the work and his extension of the work, he calls Theatre for Living. And it was really important to him that he left behind what he called the binary of the oppressor and oppressed. And he felt that for the context in which he was working, that was less useful than it might have been in Boal's situation. So not in any way a judgment on Boal's use of that polarity, but felt that it was not necessarily as helpful for the work that he was doing. And it's been further adapted to the university educational context in a program called Conflict Theatre at UBC, of which I have the great pleasure of being the faculty lead. And what you're seeing today and what we're discussing has come out of a collaboration between the CRAB project and Conflict Theatre at UBC. So what is forum theatre, first of all, for those of you out here who have not experienced it? So this is a description that comes straight from the Theatre for Living website, and I certainly can't come up with a better description of it myself, so I've taken the liberty of borrowing it from them. In forum theatre, we show the audience the play all the way through once. The play builds to a crisis and then stops, offering no solutions. The play is then performed a second time, where audience members can then stop the action and enter the stage themselves by replacing characters with whom they identify and try to solve problems or issues inside the story. The rest of the cast stays in character and improvises, and the theater becomes a creative laboratory where we can try ways to transform ourselves, our communities, and the world. And so the CRAB project offers 2 forum theater scenarios for you to use to explore and rehearse possible responses to bullying in nursing education. So there's some pedagogical values that are really central to the Theatre of the Oppressed, and some of you may have already made this connection, that the Theatre of the Oppressed is steeped in the values of fellow Brazilian Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. And Freire's pedagogy seeks to break out of what he called the banking model of education, in which there is a single knowledge holder, the teacher, who then deposits knowledge into the supposedly empty bank accounts of the students' minds. Instead, it values and seeks to mobilize the embodied wisdom of everyone involved in the mutual construction of understanding. So it's not like teacher knows, students don't know, and this one-way deposit. Everyone who walks into the room has lived deep experience that is unique to them, and that's valued, and we want to activate that. And we want to activate all the collective wisdom in the room with whatever group we're doing this work with. And if you're doing it, especially if you've got a mix of newer nurses, nurses still in training, more experienced nurses, there's so much variety of experience in the room. You want to be able to mobilize it. When I do this work, I'm certainly not the expert in the nursing domain. I bring some experience with these theatrical methods and this methodology, but in terms of the content, you are the experts. And so that's what we want to mobilize when we do this work. So there are some operational commitments that we have when we do this work that are really, really important to stay grounded in. One is that there are no right answers. Even though people are going to try and model different approaches, it's not our job to say, well, that was the right approach and that was the wrong approach. And we are not seeking consensus. Disagreement is always welcome in this process. And while we may disagree with the interpretations made by others, we honor the truth of their lived experience. Also, when we're doing this work, no one is ever compelled or coerced into taking part. There's always an invitation, and we would suggest for you, if you're doing it in an educational context, that students have the option to opt out without losing marks, without being penalized, because this work can be very personal for people, and the spirit of the work is always that it's an invitation. It should never be coercive, that a person has to really participate if it's really not what they want to do. And as I just mentioned, audience members always have the option of leaving without a penalty. So understanding objectives is a big part of how directors speak to actors. Your actors must always have a deep understanding of their character's objective, because your actors are not going to be professional actors. They're going to be nurses. They're going to be people that have lived experience of this domain. That's way more important than any level of acting experience they might have. But the character always has an objective, which is something they are trying to achieve in the scene. Character A's objective must always be understood as something specific that they want character B to do or to say, so that character A can know that they're getting what they want, and vice versa. So example, I want B to love me is insufficient as an objective. Instead, I want B to say, I love you, or I want B to hug me, or I want B to agree to have dinner with me. Those are all sufficient objectives because they have what we call a cap, something very specific that the other character can do or say that lets me know I'm getting what I want. And all of a character's behavior, including their lines, are in the service of the pursuit of their objective in the face of various obstacles that they encounter in the scene. So understanding obstacles. Obstacles are any factor, external or internal, that hinders a character in their pursuit of their objective. Now, most external obstacles can be found in the behavior of the character, i.e. their expressed resistance, but they can also include such factors as the environment. For example, you're in a place where one should not speak loudly or maybe even at all. And it's important not to overlook internal obstacles like pride and shame that prevent people from clearly asking for what they need in some circumstances. And it's this collision between the clearly articulated objective and the obstacles that occur in the scene that produces the appropriate emotions, rhythm, and phrasing in the actor, and inspires the appropriate spontaneous behavior when improvising during an audience intervention. Because, of course, Once an audience member replaces a character, the script gets left behind because this person is going to try a new approach to the conflict, and we're going to improvise. So this is the key to understanding this. It's at the center of what we teach actors that are training to be professional actors. And it's the key that non-actors can still hold on to and be able to generate really good performances, particularly because these are scenes about things they know, right? Situations they may have been in, certainly an area of expertise that they've encountered and that they know something about. So one of the things that you're going to want to do as the director, and so this becomes part of your preparation, is to make sure that turning points and moments of choice are marked very, very clearly, because those are the moments where you anticipate that an audience member may likely want to jump in and change something. There's going to be other points that you don't anticipate, and then an audience member says, no, I want to stop there. That's perfectly fine. But there's a couple in every scene that you want to make sure they stand out in a certain relief so that the audience doesn't miss them. So many audience interventions will take place at moments in the play when a character makes a clear choice either to do or to not do something, often prompted by a significant change in the scene, such as new information, a change in tone, or an escalation in the conflict. So therefore, it is important to make sure that you are familiar with all of these important moments in the text and that you're prepared to guide your actors to make those moments apparent to the audience. So there's some goals for rehearsal that are really important. First, you want to help the actors find a sense of naturalness and ease with the text. You want to ensure that the actors are pursuing their objectives and adjusting to obstacles. You want to ensure that all of the turning points and moments of choice are visible to the audience. And you want to ensure that your actors are ready to engage in improvisations with intervening audience members. And most importantly, and we'll talk a lot more about this, you want to ensure that your actors have created consistent characters that fight for what they want, but they are still capable of change. We'll talk about this a lot more specifically as we go along. So you're going to start with a first read-through. So it's always advisable to begin your rehearsal period with this first read-through, in which the actors simply read the text aloud with each other without any obligation to perform. Instead, they simply put their focus on making sure they understand all of the circumstances of the scene, they can make sense of what they're saying, they can follow the unfolding events, and can identify the turning points and moments of choice through which those events unfold. And at the end of the first read-through, the actors should be given a chance to ask questions regarding any elements of the scene that they're unclear about. And after answering their questions, you can then begin to guide them towards an articulation of their objectives and obstacles, and begin working together to identify all of the turning points and moments of choice. So let's turn to a first read-through in a rehearsal of one of our scenarios. Okay, so we're going to get into the first read-through, which is always a really important first part of rehearsal, is to just have our actors are going to read through the scene together. We haven't read it together before. We're just going to have a chance to sort of get acquainted with each other, get acquainted with the script. As the director, I'm not going to lay a bunch of expectations on them. I just want them to explore the language and get a feel for what's going on, and then we're going to have a little bit of discussion. But before we do that, I'd like to invite the actors to introduce themselves.
So my name is Chris, and I will actually be playing the role of the RN whose name is Chris.
And my name is Raluca, and I'm going to be playing the role of Kelly, who is the nursing student.
Okay, great. So I'm going to read stage directions as part of this first read-through, but very quickly I'll stop reading stage directions as we go deeper into the process, as they'll just interrupt the flow. But right now, because this is not in any way, the first read-through is not in any way intended as a performance, it's really exploratory. All the pressure is off, and we're just going to read it to make sure there's nothing we're missing about what's on the page. Okay? Ready? Okay. Scene 1, Act 1. Kelly is sitting at the desk, just finishing their review of the Cardex, when their new RN, Chris, arrives on the unit. Running a little late and just back from days off from working on the other side of the unit, Chris appears a little distracted. They explicitly eye the chair that Kelly occupies, causing Kelly to feel flustered and jump up to offer their seat to Chris, who takes it as a rite of passage and an expected entitlement. Once seated, Chris pulls the Cardex towards them and reaches for their coffee mug that emits a delicious aroma of fresh brew. Kelly's enthusiasm is unwavering, and they eagerly introduce themselves as follows.
Hi there, I'm Kelly, a first-term nursing student, and I'm so excited to be paired with you today. I was with your colleague yesterday, and we had a really great day. I learned so much, and I'm hoping to use some of that today. I am assigned to 2 of your patients, Mr. O and Miss A. I had Mr. O yesterday, but I didn't have Miss A. I had Mr. T, and I find it hard to hear Mr. O's BP. We have to take them manually, so the RN really helped me with that yesterday. Just double check. It was so helpful.
Can you just stop with all the details? Who did you say you are?
She makes no eye contact and speaks quite abruptly to her.
I'm Kelly, a first-term student.
From where?
The accelerated program at the university. It's an intense program, but I'm really enjoying
The
it.
university. Oh my goodness. Well, that explains it.
She rolls her eyes and sighs rather loudly. Kelly looks crestfallen because of Chris's tone. There's silence for a few seconds.
Okay, so you've been here for a few weeks and you can't do a blood pressure?
Well, I can with the automatic machine, but my CI wants us to only do manuals now for the rest of our rotation. I can do it manually as long as you check it.
Okay, so you do know that I've just transferred here from working on the other side, and this is my first day back, and now I have a student who can't take a blood pressure? Mr. O has hypertension. What can you do exactly?
Well, I can do full head-to-toe assessments, vital signs, mobilizing, personal hygiene, communicating effectively.
Okay, just stop there. It sounds like you cannot do all the vitals if you need someone to check your blood pressures. So look, I need to read the Cardex, I need to have my coffee. Quite frankly, I'm quickly developing a whopper of a headache. So you need to get going, get your CI to check whatever needs checking. I don't have the time or really the inclination, and your CI, she's paid to do that.
Kelly looks crestfallen and moves to leave, and that's where the scene freezes and stops. Okay, great. Thank you both very much. So we're just going to have a little chat, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a process that we call talking about the given circumstances. So I'm not leaping to tell either actor, do it this way or make sure you say that line that way. Or we want it. This is going to grow out of what the actors bring to it. Now, neither of you are a professional trained actor, correct?
No, correct.
So that's important for you to know this because we're trying to make this work, something that you feel comfortable doing. So you're going to see these 2 people who are not trained professional actors bring these characters to life in a really significant way that you and your colleagues can do as well. So talking about the given circumstances, simply, you know, the who, what, when, where kinds of questions. So Chris, what can you tell us about your character and the situation that they are in at the beginning of the scene? What are the things that we know about you and your situation having read the scene?
Well, I've been on vacation, so it's my or I've been off anyways, and so it's my first day back, but I was also on a different unit before, so I haven't been on this unit. So I don't know any of the patients. I don't know what's been going on. And I mean, that's what we know for sure, but you know, who knows else what's been going on in my personal life when I was off. Like maybe I wasn't on vacation. Maybe I was off because somebody in my family was really sick.
Right.
So I think that I'm bringing that still with me, whatever was going on.
Okay, great. So Chris is already thinking very much like an actor, which is how do you make sure that the stakes are high enough so that you're really motivated, because the theater is all about conflict, which is one of the reasons why, that it's such a good vehicle for addressing the issues that we're addressing here, bullying. So there are certain things that the script tells us that you're back from vacation and all the things you've just described, but then you mentioned something that's not in the script, but as an actor you can use in your back pocket. Is it, say the vacation didn't go the way you wanted it to, or in fact someone was ill, or there's, that isn't necessarily in the script. The audience doesn't ever need to know it explicitly, but if it gives your character a stronger motivation, or it creates the circumstances under which your character is going to behave in this way, because it's really important that Chris's character is not some kind of cartoon cutout of a villain in a bullying situation. This needs to be a real, seasoned, professional nurse that we can recognize, that all of you can recognize, who's not behaving at their best in this moment for reasons that do not excuse the behavior. It's not that it becomes Raluca's job or Kelly's job, to use the character's name, to just simply accept this behavior. But if we're going to try and address this behavior in a way that's not simply about being punitive, and we can actually find a way to work forward, it's important that this character not be a villain, because I don't believe there are many nurses out there who are villains. I don't know, maybe someone out there has a different story, but for me, that's not been my experience. Great, and there's a few other things that are mentioned in here. So you have a particular response when Kelly mentions that she has studied at a particular university. What is your response there?
Well, I think some university programs, there is a sense as a seasoned nurse that they haven't really had the clinical experience. So they're coming in having read lots of stuff, you know, there's a lot of theoretical knowledge, but in terms of the actual on the unit experience, I think there is that sense that you don't get that in a lot of university programs.
Okay, so this character has a particular viewpoint on university programs. We could debate back and forth whether that's fair, whether that's accurate, but we have to assume that it is built on some kind of actual lived experience that your character has had, and not just on necessarily some prejudice you made up in your mind, right? That there is a lived experience that this person is having, that they have found that university-trained students, again, just this one character's experience and belief, it's important that we see the world from behind this character's eyes, and that category is important for you. That university-trained nurse means a lot of theoretical knowledge, not as much practical knowledge. So for you, that's already a red flag on a day where you're already coming in at a deficit. Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. Anything else you want to say about the character at this point?
No, and I think the other thing that would come up, I think for me, is lots of times as a nurse on a unit, we don't necessarily get told that we're going to have a student working with us. So it's like, that's a surprise and not necessarily a pleasant one, given how your day is already going or has gone or whatever else you're bringing with
Right.
you.
And is that because nurses don't like students?
No, I don't think that's. I think
I
you know,
know,
maybe there
I'm
are
being
some
facetious
nurses.
because I know the answer.
Yeah, maybe
to
there
a
are
degree.
some nurses that don't like students, but honestly, I've always in my own career loved having a student. But it's sometimes the reality of what's going on a unit in our system. You know, there's not enough staff. There's not great communication about what's going on any given day, and that can just throw you off.
Right. So the systemic drivers that create situations in which bullying behavior emerges, the idea of someone being a bully is a category that they live in, you know, maybe isn't as useful as thinking about the kinds of behavior that's happening in this moment. And there's a systemic context that's putting you in this place where, again, you need to do better. Chris needs to do differently. This is not an excuse for Chris, but we start to understand the kinds of contextual things that lead to these types of difficult and problematic interactions. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try and address you by your characters' names from here on in. So Kelly, what can you tell us about yourself, gleaned from just this first read through?
Well, I mean, I'm a very excited first-term student, and the energy and enthusiasm that I come with in clinical is very real because it's kind of been built up from, you know, you have your theory, and then the most thing you're looking forward to is getting your hands into practice and actually getting the chance to work with patients. So I think that I am not aware of, you know, those kind of systemic factors that may exist that can pose challenges to nursing staff. And how the unit works around that. So I have kind of no awareness of that in the back of my mind. And so Chris's response or her demeanor towards me as I approach her with this energy definitely takes me by surprise. And I think also kind of shocks me because it's not something that you're talking about in the classroom. You're not talking about the stress that's on the ground. You're not talking about just the obstacles and what are those contributing factors. So I have no knowledge whatsoever, like kind of what has come my way. And then I think also because I'm so surprised, I don't really know how to respond as I can be seen in kind of my demeanor as well, and how I'm just not sure how I'm going to go on with the rest of the day.
Right. Okay, great. So you're coming in with all of this enthusiasm without necessarily a lot of cognizance about the context as it appears for Chris. Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So tell me what happened with the BP yesterday.
Well, I had a hard time since I'm just kind of learning my way as to how to listen to blood pressure manually. It's not quite sure when you have your stethoscope on, you might hear additional sounds, or I thought I had kind of my positioning right. I thought I was doing my assessment right, but I just wasn't quite sure. And so having that doubt in my mind, I thought that maybe working with Chris today, she could help me kind of explore maybe a better position, or maybe just another trick that I could kind of learn on getting that blood pressure right, because it's really critical for the meds.
Yeah. And how did it feel for this character to struggle with the blood pressure the day before this?
Very stressful, because you know that if you don't get the right measurement, then you know that can actually alter your course with the treatment that you're supposed to follow up with. So maybe if I made a mistake in measurement, then that could lead to me misreporting that blood pressure, and then the patient could suffer an outcome that it would be quite negative. And I think that could make me kind of, could be traumatizing for me, because I'm in my first term and I just want to really give the best care, because I'm so excited to be nursing, and I'm so excited to just get started with this practical aspect. So I would be very worried about the outcome. Yeah.
How much do you think you've thought about it since the end of yesterday and coming in for this shift today?
Well, I'm pretty sure it was on my mind all night, which is why, thank God for coffee, because I don't think I had a very good sleep.
Yeah. So this is all the stuff that's we're bringing into the scene, and that's underneath the scene as what we call subtext, right? So you've got your excitement, but there's also, that's been on your mind. And I think it's a really wise choice, because an actor could simply say, oh yeah, it happened. I haven't thought about it that much. I'm just really excited to be here and I hope I get some help. But the stronger choice for an actor is, I've been thinking about this a lot, right? Especially because it comes spilling out in that very first speech, right? There's this long sort of bunch of text that comes out that includes, and I had trouble with the BP, so I'm hoping you can help me today, right? So it's definitely sort of top of mind. So while it isn't, there's nothing in the script that says you have to have thought about it a lot the night before. The higher stakes choice for the actor, and the motivating choice for the actor, is you've been ruminating about this. It's like really high on the list of expectations as you're coming into the scene. Great. Anything else you want to tell us about the character at this point?
Well, I think I have this very happy idea about how, you look up to nurses, and they serve kind of as my inspiration. So I'm in my mind, I'm looking forward to developing kind of this new relationship with a new nurse. That's kind of thinking about what I came in with into the practice setting. However, I think that after this interaction this morning, I feel this impending doom. Like I feel this sense of fear and paralysis that I don't really know what to do next to make sure that I don't upset Chris.
Right.
So I just want to know I feel like I need somebody to whisper in my ear, like, what's the best way forward
Right.
to set us up for a good day.
Right. Great. Thank you both so much. So now we're going to get to the critical question that comes out of the given circumstances, which is, what is the character's objective, intention, goal? There's a lot of different words in acting parlance for this, but it is the key that unlocks the scene. And it can be deceptively simple what it can be. And so I'm going to ask you to think about what the desired response would be of the other person. In a perfect world, what would happen in this scene? And it needs to be rooted in the other person. So it needs to have its test in the other person. It needs to be something that the other person can do or say that will give you what you need. Yeah? And you as the director, you may have some ideas about what those are, and they might not be exactly what the actors say. Let the actors try it, because what their version might be, their wording might be different than what my wording might be, but it might actually deliver the same results, or results that are satisfying. And the results that are satisfying from my perspective are, is it believable? Does it seem natural? Do the story points that we need to be clear, are they clear? And am I the viewer drawn into it? So rather than getting attached to, I hear this line this way or I hear that line that way, that needs to go out the window. Even working with professional actors, you want it to grow organically from the people that are doing the roles. So, Chris, what would your objective or intention be? What would you really love to have Kelly do or say that would give you what you need?
I mean, I think initially I do really need some space. Like, I feel like that's really, just when I get there, I need some space. I don't need her chattering at me. So to have some quiet, for her to figure out something that she can look at or do well, and then, I mean, ideally, to have it feel like she's really there to help me, right? To actually help me, so that my day, which right now feels like it's totally overwhelming, that the patients will actually get the care that they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So, and you mentioned certainly certainly in the first part of the scene, there's this desire for some space, right? So, and overall, you want to feel that this person's there to help you rather than to hinder you.
Yes.
Yeah? I'd like you to boil this down into something specific, really specific, word for word, that Kelly could say, or something really specific that she could do, that you would be able to know just as clearly as a thermostat knows. Well, it doesn't really know, but in metaphorical sense, that the temperature is exactly 30 degrees.
I mean, I think initially, if she said something like, I get you need, I can see you need your coffee, or I'm going to go away for a few minutes, and can I come back in about 10? And maybe we could talk about it.
Right.
Something that would show that she recognizes I
Okay.
need some space.
Okay. So if she says, I'm going to go away and come back when you're ready for me.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question that comes with this, which is not a trick question because it's going to help us discover some of the obstacles you're dealing with. Why don't you come out and say that directly, do you think, as a character?
I think it's just, when you're sitting there looking at the Cardex and thinking about your day ahead and the patients, and then knowing that you don't really know the patients also. So I don't necessarily want to tell her that I don't know the patients, because I'm an experienced RN.
Great.
I should just know everything.
Yeah, right.
Right? Even though I really can't and
Right,
don't.
right.
But I think there is that sense that I want to be somebody that knows everything for a student, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to tell her that I need time to read the Cardex, that I don't really know these patients yet.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So this is really important that we understand what those obstacles are. We drill down to the real deepest need, and then if that need is not really specifically articulated in the text, we need to find out why. But that creates this juicy pressure, right? That is, I don't actually even know who's on this unit right now, but I can't say that out loud. So this barrage, right, is even more challenging for me and is going to trigger me to behave in this certain way.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about for you? What could Chris do or say? And allow yourself to imagine. Sometimes you can imagine really freely in the ideal world, even if it doesn't seem exactly plausible. For instance, when I work with my acting students, I talk to them and I say, if you had an audition for your favorite director and it was an audition for a 3-line part, what would your objective be going in? And often they'll start by saying, well, my objective would be to get the 3-line part. And I'll say, well, but really? Like, what is your deepest desire? And eventually we get to, well, they'd hear me do those 3 lines, and then they'd say, oh my God, I've completely misthought this thing. You need to be the lead role. Let's stop everything. You're now, right? So don't be afraid to imagine what would be this young nurse's, nursing student's best possible thing that that Chris could say?
Well, in an ideal world, I would love for her to kind of pause and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come off the way I have. It's just that there's a lot going on. But, once I get a sense of my patients, why don't we work together to address, the things, the areas that you were having trouble with yesterday. So I would almost want that acknowledgement that I said I was having really hard time with that blood pressure. But I would almost want her to come through and say, I'll be there for you today.
I'll be there for
I'll
you.
be there to help you. So I think that would be kind of like my ideal message.
Okay, I'll be there for you is great. So so we call that a cap for the objective, right? The cap is the specific thing that the other person could do or say to let the character know they're getting what they want, right? So for her to say, I'll be there for you, and for her to say, let me go away and give you some time. Okay, great. So now we're going to read the scene again, and I'm going to ask you to try and get them to do that exact thing with every single line you speak. Even if it's not obvious how that line serves that objective, see if from the very first moment of this play, get what you want. And don't stop fighting for what you want. These lines are just what you use along the way, right? Because in an ideal world, if as soon as you said, can you stop with all the details? In an ideal world, she goes, oh, I'm going to go away and give you some time, right? Right from the very beginning. And for you, I'm the first-term nursing student. Oh, a first-term nursing student? Let me assure you that I will be there for you all day long, right? If you keep that in mind, keep that in the forefront, the lines are going to take on a new kind of life, yeah? Okay, so let's read it once more with that in mind. And I won't do the stage directions this time.
Hi there, I'm Kelly, a first-term nursing student, and I'm so excited to be paired with you today. I was with your colleague yesterday, and we had a really great day. I learned so much, and I'm hoping to use some of that today. I'm assigned to two of your patients, specifically Mr. O and Miss A. I had Mr. O yesterday, but I didn't have Miss A. I had Mr. T. I did find it hard to hear Mr. O's blood pressure, but we have to take them manually, so the RN really helped me with that yesterday, and I'm kind of hoping that would happen again today. Just double check. It was really helpful.
Can you just stop with all the details? Who did you say you are?
I'm Kelly, a first-term student.
From where?
The accelerated program at the university. It's an intense program, but I'm really enjoying it.
The university. Oh my God. Okay, well that explains it. All right, okay, so you've been here for a few weeks, you can't do blood pressure.
Well, I can with the automatic machine, but my CI really wants us to do manual. It's just part of how we're getting better and better at making sure we know the blood pressures. But I can do it manually as long as you're there to check.
Okay, so you do know that I've just transferred from the other side. This is my first day back. I have a student now who can't take a blood pressure. Mr. O has hypertension. What can you do exactly?
Well, I can help out with head-to-toe assessments, vital signs. I can help mobilize patients, personal hygiene, communicating effectively.
Okay, just stop there. It looks like you can't do all the vitals if you need someone to check your blood pressures. So look, I need to read the Cardex and have my coffee. Quite frankly, I'm developing a bit of a headache, so you need to get going, get your CI, she can check whatever needs checking. I don't have the time or the inclination, and your CI is paid to do it.
Okay.
And scene. All right, very nice. So, anything you discovered that time through doing the scene? Or how that felt, or anything about how that felt?
It felt, well, I mean, it's not a nice role to play,
Right.
let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But it felt like I was in the character.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I had to force it as much.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the magic of a
Yeah.
strong objective, right? You just bring yourself to it. It might not be a part of yourself that
Yeah.
you want to show in public all the time, but that's what actors get paid the big bucks for. But it's as simple as having that strong, clear objective. And yeah, it was, to me, the tone was absolutely right. Without me as a director saying, here's a tone I'm thinking about. Do you think, right? The secret is to guide the actor towards an objective that works. And what about for you? Anything that you discovered or any comments about how that felt that time through?
I didn't feel as attacked. I mean, I still felt like she was frustrated, but I felt like I was disappointed inside, but I felt like I could tolerate that reaction, except in a different way. And I don't know. I mean, this is also a side note to partaking in this, but I almost felt the need to provide additional lines to go outside of the text of the script and to kind of acknowledge that I wanted to actually say I'm sorry when she said that, enough with all the details. She's got a
Right.
headache. I really wanted to kind of push outside of the parameters of the script and they just felt natural. Like it felt like I was there
Right.
with her and
Yeah.
these are the things that I wanted to say to her.
Right.
And yeah.
So this is interesting. So we have two different experiences here, which are really useful for us as a director and for this process. So this led you into really sort of a connection with the character and feeling like that felt really natural, not a way I like to be.
Right.
And for you actually were feeling a kind of, it seemed to me what I'm hearing is that you were feeling a kind of empathy towards her that is not voiced in. So this character doesn't do those things, right? So then we need to ask ourselves why. Why does this character not acknowledge the headache? Why does this character not say sorry?
I think because she doesn't have the context yet built of what it entails to be maybe a more seasoned, even a nursing student. Because she's in the first term, she hasn't seen nor experienced like the real stress that unfortunately unfolds in the clinical setting and hasn't had the chance to develop yet a relationship with Chris or with staff on the unit. So I think because that's not there, when you don't have context, I think it's a bit more difficult to relate and say, okay, I empathize with you, I'm sorry. Because all you're thinking about is how you're going to do, how you're going to perform. Are you going to
Right.
impress the RN? Are you going to impress your CI? Are you going
Right.
to give the best care and
Yeah.
be a shining star? Because that's, I mean, really, I think that's what first-term nursing is like. It's
Right.
you really want to be able to push your limits and to show, your colleagues, your
Yeah.
instructor that, I got this spot. It's hard to get into nursing, but I'm here and this is why I'm here. So it's almost like that need to prove yourself.
Okay.
But at the same time, you're not really, you want to say that I need to do it with like my hand being held for a little bit of time.
Okay.
So,
So just for fun then, let's change your objective. And this is going to sound strange. It's going to sound out of context, but let's change your objective to wanting Chris to tell you that you're a shining star. And so every time that she says something that is contrary to you being a shining star, you're a shining star, you just happen to need some help with BPs today. But you're a shining star. That's why you're telling her all this stuff, right? And let's see what happens if we turn up the dial on that. And something we didn't talk about yet, which is there's a drawing that we show, which is a cabin, and there's a man or a person being chased into a cabin, and there's a bear behind them. The objective is to get into the house, right? The bear represents what's at stake. What happens to this person if they don't get into the house? They get eaten by a bear, right? It's really helpful when an actor has an outcome that they're trying to avoid that's as tangible for you as being eaten by a bear. So I'll often ask an actor, what's the bear? Or sometimes we may discover that we don't have a big enough bear. So what's the bear that's chasing you if you don't get this nurse to tell you you're a shining star?
I keep thinking about, for me, it would, the patient. I keep thinking about the patient. The patient being the bear in that the patient's not doing well. And it would be as a result of me having done something to that patient.
Right.
And that would be something that I could not, like, I don't feel like I could survive that if something had happened to a patient because of me.
Okay, great. So let's bring that into this scene. As far removed as this scene might seem from that moment of, oh my God, this patient's in real distress, that's what's actually going on for you. So let's try read it one more time at the table with that sense of urgency that I'm a shining star and I have to be, because if I'm not a shining star, something really terrible is going to happen. Right? And that's also what is going to blind you and and make you unable to hear in a different way what's coming back at you. And is also going to make what she says, even though it's in this different tone than our first reading, still hurt. Do you know what I mean? Okay, great. Let's just read it one more time at the table.
Oh, hi there. I'm Kelly, a first-term nursing student, and I'm so excited to be paired with you today. I was with your colleague yesterday, and we had a really great day. I learned so much, and I'm hoping to use some of that today. I'm assigned to two of your patients, Mr. O and Miss A. I had Mr. O yesterday, but I didn't have Miss A. Oh, and I also had Mr. T, but I found it hard to hear Mr. O's BP. We have to take them manually, so the RN really helped me with that yesterday, and I had to get it right. Just double check. It was so helpful. Could we?
Can you stop with the details? Who did you say you are?
I'm Kelly, a first-term student.
From where?
The accelerated program at the university. It's an intense program, but I'm really enjoying it.
The university. Well, that explains it. Okay, so you've been here for a few weeks. You can't do blood pressure.
Well, I can with the automatic machine, but RCI wants us to do it manually, and now for the rest of our rotation. So I would need you to check it if I do it manually.
Okay, so you do know that I've just transferred from working on the other side? This is my first day back, and now I have a student who can't take a blood pressure. Mr. O has hypertension. What can you do exactly?
Well, I can do full head-to-toe assessments, vital signs. I can mobilize the patient. I can also help with personal hygiene, and I'm a really great.
Okay, just stop there, because it sounds like you actually can't do all the vitals if you need someone to check your blood pressures. So look, I need to read the Cardex. I need to have my coffee. Quite frankly, I'm developing a headache. So you get going, get your CI to check whatever needs checking. I don't have the time, the inclination, and your CI is paid to do it.
And scene. Okay, great. So that felt very different for me watching it. What was that like for you?
I think, like you said, I felt very deflated, like that, that massive ego you have going in. It just felt like it got shot all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like everything I had in yesterday was gone out the window.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And fortunately, we have you on close up there, so we could really see how that was changing and how that was moving through you, right? That as you got chopped down. So great. So it shows you an adjustment to the objective, but came from a discussion with the actor, right? It grew out of I just was responding to your description of the word shining star came from you, and I just turned that back into changing the objective. So great. I think the scene is cooking, and we're ready to get on our feet.